find other great podcasts like this one at podmoth.network.
Katelyn?
Oh, hi. What? Yes, hello.
What do you call a skeleton that's having a great time?
Skeleton. Oh my god, I'm thrilled.
An osteoblast!
Oh, that's actually pretty good. I like that.
Thank you to the Thought Catalog article, 25 Bone Puns That Everyone Will Find Humorous. Do you want another one?
Yeah, I mean, the fucking title has a pun in it. Humorous. Like, they're geniuses.
Ooh, where do you put a naughty skeleton?
I don't know.
In a rib cage.
Oh. I guess that's cool.
Let me find a fun one to end on. This is terrible. How do skeletons get their mail?
I don't know. They wiggle over to the mailbox? I don't know.
They get it from the Boney Express.
Oh, I hate it. No more Thought Catalog.
In olden days, a glimpse of femur was only for morbid dreamers, but you're not alone. Bring anything bones. Two goofy gals with deathly interest go on a skeleton inquest in your headphones. Anything bones.
Hello and welcome to Anything Bones. I'm Sophie, the listener, Schwartz.
And I'm Katelyn, Hollywood Intrigue Hart. And today is part 2 of our record. We just, if you're joining us again, in Sophie and I's world, we just finished Sophie's story on Marcel, the French anti-Semitic dickhole.
Yeah, a serial killer who took the opportunity of Nazi-occupied France to run an absolute muck.
And I looked at Sophie and I go, hey, I think this episode should be a 2-parter because I really want to get into my topic here, and I didn't want Sophie to shorten hers at all because it was awesome and very intriguing and sad. We needed to know it.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Like I said last week, I really appreciate you and the listeners giving me space to tell that story. I don't usually go into the true crime area, but I thought it pertinent. But, you know, sometimes we have too much bone-tastic information for one episode, so we got to make it into 2. And this is super appropriate because it's Katelyn's birthday week.
Shit. Yeah, that's right. It's about to go down.
In birthday town.
Yeah.
And may I say that you are Dirty 30?
Yeah, it's a Dirty 30 is happening. It's going to be fun.
It's a big one. We're going on a trip with friends.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to party it up hard. And by party it up hard, I mean everyone will probably be asleep by 11:30.
Yeah, that's how you roll at a 30th birthday party in the woods.
Oh, I can't wait. It's going to be so wonderful.
Yeah, well, yeah, cool. So this worked out great because normally we record on Wednesdays and my birthday's on Wednesday. So I was like, hey, let's just make this a 2-part. Maybe that's too much information. You're getting a look behind the curtain, but I don't care.
You know what? Sometimes you hear a rattly sound behind the curtain, and you have to look behind the curtain. And there's 2 skeletons sitting there waiting to tell you a bone story.
And one of them's reading an article from Thought Catalog about puns.
And one of them is torturing the other one with an article from Thought Catalog with 25 humorous puns. If you're not careful, I'm going to start every one of these ding-dang episodes with one of those puns.
Yeah, I mean, you'd get a lot of traction out of that.
I mean, I already burned 3.
I know. I was just going to say, I'm sorry that you wasted 2 extra. So as I teased last week, I'm going to be talking about the Los Feliz Murder Mansion, which is a weird, crazy house in Los Angeles. It's at 2475 Glendower Place. And yeah, this is the weirdest house around. The Winchester Mystery House has a certain je ne sais quoi. This is just straight up creepy, this house.
Well, you know me, I love a house with haunted vibes.
With a sordid past. Do you know much about this? Because I felt like I knew the name of it, but not very much about the story of it.
I could not tell you the story of it off the top of my head, but I too knew the name right off the bat and had a bad vibe.
So there was a My Favorite Murder about this a while back, so it's likely that one or both of us have heard it. But I'm going to get into it, and I found it really interesting, so I hope our listeners feel the same way. So my sources for this were Atlas Obscura, New York Post, LA Curbed, Ranker, and then a 7-part podcast series that I will talk a little bit more about later on. But it's literally called the Los Feliz Murder Mansion podcast. And it's really good. I gave them their 1,000th rating on Apple. So I was like, yeah, I'm into it.
That's amazing. Oh my God.
Yeah, and it's like an independent like company. They did research for like 7 years and then released 7 episodes. So now I'm seeing the connection. Okay. Anyway.
Wow, talk about dedication.
Yeah, I was so impressed with the research. So highly recommend checking that out. It's hosted by Stacey Estenius. I listened to 7 episodes and she probably said her name and I probably butchered it. I'm just going to call her Stacey because I feel like I know her now.
Y'all are friends.
One other cool thing before I get into the house itself, the neighborhood that the Los Feliz Murder Mansion is in, it's right next to a Frank Lloyd Wright house that's super famous called the Ennis House. So for all our architecture boneheads out there, I'm sure they probably know what the Ennis House is.
Even I actually know what that is.
Yeah, well, and everyone probably knows who Frank Lloyd Wright is, famous architect.
Probably the only architect a lot of people can name off the top of their head.
Yeah. I believe the houses are like right next door to each other or like super, super close. Let me show you a picture of this house because I think that's kind of important to get kind of a vibe check for it. Actually, I'll just send you the Atlas Obscura article and you can flip through the pictures.
Ooh, yeah. There's definitely a vibe.
There's a super vibe. So I think I didn't write it down, but I believe there's like something like 50 steps to the front door of this house.
That second picture is not okay to have. Should not be okay to have on the internet. That's so creepy. Oh my God. It's like taken from the street and just like the front gate is like lit up by the flash of the camera and the house is hulking in the background. It is not cool. I do not prefer that. This house is very scary.
Yeah.
It's like kind of built in that kind of like quasi Spanish Californian style, with the like, you know, shingled roofs and the kind of like little rounded like arched windows and little balconies, but the whole thing has a wrong feel to it.
Yeah. And that there's a front window that's just like too big. And it actually, you can't really tell from the pictures, but it's described in the podcast that there's like a staircase. I know, I hate that second picture. For if you're not able to like get to Atlas Obscura and look at the second picture, it's basically just like a amateur nighttime shot of the murder mansion. And I'm gonna tell you, like, people just go to this mansion and are like, fuck it, I'm going to, like, they had to put up fencing because people were aggressively going to it and trespassing.
That's what I feel like I remember about this house, is that they had a lot of trespassing and like squatting problems.
Yes, yeah. So the other thing that's famous about this house, let's see if this rings a bell. Super short version. A man kills his wife, nearly kills his daughter, drinks acid, kills himself. And then the house sits vacant for years and years, and people go up to look in the window and they still see a Christmas tree with wrapped presents under it.
Yep.
Is that ringing a bell?
The Christmas tree and the looking in the windows.
Mm-hmm.
The acid thing, I did not remember.
Well, okay, here we go. So
get into it, please.
That's the like urban legend version of this story. I am going to put a trigger warning in this one for the beginning. There is some talk of self-harm. Okay, so on December 6th, 1959, at about 4:30 in the morning, Dr. Harold Perelson killed his wife Lillian in her sleep with a ball-peen hammer. Horrific. The mother of your children. They have 3 children together. He's a doctor. She is, I believe, a homemaker and does charity stuff. And they have 3 children together.
When you kill someone with a ball-peen hammer, like...
How?
It's unimaginable to me. Also, ball-peen hammer. I say it once, I'll say it 1,000 times. It does not have a practical use. It is only for murdering people.
Yeah, I don't...
If you see someone who has a ball-peen hammer...
Run.
Yeah.
So Harold, he next went to his 18-year-old daughter's room and also attacked her with the ball-peen hammer. Luckily / unluckily for her, obviously none of this is good, she escapes with her life. She does run to her parents' room and find her mother, unfortunately. Her screams apparently woke neighbors. People could hear her yelling, like, stop, don't kill me.
Anyone who heard those screams would hear them for the rest of their lives.
Yep.
That's horrible.
The 2 younger kids woke up and heard the screaming. So the daughter, Judy, like I said, she's 18 years old. She runs out of the house and runs to a neighbor's house, and they call the police. So when the 2 younger siblings had woken up, they were like, Dad, what's going on? And he allegedly said, go back to bed. This is a nightmare. Isn't that sick?
That is chilling.
It's so scary. So the urban legend is that he took acid, but he didn't. There's no way that he had access to acid like that would kill him like instantly. The podcast lady, Stacy, she did a lot of research in like court records and like death certificates and all that stuff. He most likely died of some concoction of pills. He was a doctor, and so he had access to all kinds of shit. This acid thing is just like, it's over the top. And there's no, like, actual evidence that that's how he died.
I feel like every time there's one of these, like, really horrific crimes, people deal with it by, like, making up these kind of hideous urban legend rumors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so just listen to this podcast. It's really interesting when she discovers, like, where did this thing about the acid come from? And then she's like, from nowhere, basically. And, like, she's kind of shady towards the journalist that first put it out there that it was acid. So it's you should listen to this podcast. It's really interesting. I'm doing like a cursory view of the Los Feliz Murder Mansion. She did 7 years of research and did this amazing podcast. Okay, so why? Obviously, we'll never know for sure like why he did this, but the most likely scenario is that he was having financial problems and mental health issues. Stacy found, my girl Stacy, she looked at probate records for Harold Perelson, and probate records are like when you die, I think when you die without a will or like even with a will, your estate is basically like they go to court and like divvy up your estate, and people can be like, oh, he owed me this amount, blah, blah, blah. There was a doctor that came forward that said he owed a bunch of money. Dr. Perelson owed a bunch of money for buying a medical clinic. So that was pretty good evidence that he bought this clinic that he couldn't afford. He always seemed to try to be living above his means. And if you needed another example of that, look again at the picture of the fucking house he bought.
Yeah, the house is insane. It's more a house than a family of that size needs.
It's more than really anybody needs.
Yeah, but I just also want to point out that, like, we've done a couple of these, like, family annihilator type murders, and it's always the financial problems.
It is, yeah. They somehow think that that's, like, insurmountable. In this story, I think he kind of blamed his wife and his oldest daughter for some of the money issues. And I think that, and it's not an original thought, because he didn't attack the younger 2 children. He wasn't trying to kill the whole family, it seems like, or maybe because Judy got away. We'll never know.
Yeah.
Some sources say that he was like kind of a experimental doctor, and he had invented some new technology to improve syringes, and like he had sunk a bunch of his savings into that, and like This source said, I think it was like maybe Ranker or something, said, quote, a partner with whom he'd made a verbal agreement swindled him out of the rights to his own invention. A bitter legal battle ensued, and Perelson only ended up with a little over $20,000 in settlement money. So one way or another, he was having some business troubles. And in 1957, the daughter, Judy, was in the car with her two younger siblings, and they were in a car accident. And Harold sued the other driver, but they only got enough money to cover the medical bills. Another kind of reason why the financial part seems to be pretty important to this dickhead. Judy wrote a letter to her aunt, and she said, quote, my parents, so to speak, are in a bind financially. There was also evidence that Harold had tried to attempt suicide a few times, and his family told people that he was having heart problems. So, toxically covering up his mental health issues.
Well, what year was this again?
So the car accident was 57, the murder was in 59.
So not a great time for the perception of mental
health. No,
health.
Definitely not. And there are some sources that say that his wife was going to try and get him committed. And so that may have been why he snapped. Again, we'll never know. So that's the story of the very most famous murder that happened in that house. It's really the only true murder, but there have been other deaths. Anyway, I'm burying the lead because that's only part of the story. So after that night, the podcast did some investigating, did the crime scene cleaners come? What happened to the property? It basically got in that probate court stuff. They put the house up so that they could pay off the debts that Harold had accumulated. And the children, had very little left in their inheritance. And actually, the children have, never been heard from again. My girl Stacy tried to contact Judy, and Judy, was not interested. So I think this was really, really traumatic for them, and they just didn't want to talk about it or relive it to anybody.
I understand that 100%.
Yeah.
I would not push these kids to talk about it.
But the thing is, the mansion has basically stood unoccupied for years at this point. It was it seemed like it was unoccupied for 30 years after this. So about a year after the murder, a couple from Lincoln Heights named Emily and Julian Enriquez bought the house in the probate auction. They bought this house, but nobody, neighbors could never say that they actually, spent a night there.
Ugh.
What it seems like is that they mostly just used it for storage.
Oh, yeah. I kind of remember that.
Uh-huh.
And did they end up leaving their shit there?
Hold on.
Okay. Hold your horses, Sophie. It's all coming back to me now.
Yeah. And so this, weird emptiness and the fact that, okay, I didn't mention, so the court documents showed that they added on a fee for all of the furniture and personal items that were in the house. So they just bought all that shit.
So they just sold it whole cloth.
Yeah,
everything.
as is, basically. So what...
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it wasn't really clear if there was, a crime scene still there or if it was cleaned up. It's a lot is going on. And a lot is unknown. It's just kind of steeped in mystery anyway. But...
Oh, my goodness.
So this house gets this, lore. First, it's kind of just in the neighborhood, and then it kind of spreads. And people are... it's a lot of young people... People go at night and they go up and climb the 50 plus steps and see what they can see in there.
I would be chicken.
Yeah.
I'd be smoking weed at the bottom of the stairs. I'd be like, no, thank you.
Of course.
I'm smart enough.
Of course, ghost hunters have gone. And people really particularly want to see this reported Christmas tree and the Christmas presents that are allegedly there. Although there is some sources say that the Perelsons might have been Jewish. So who knows where that Christmas tree really thing came from. Well, we'll come back to it later. So the podcast that I listened to, Stacey talks a lot about the Enriquez couple that bought the house. There's not a lot that's known about them, but they were pretty wealthy. They had multiple properties. On their death certificates, neither of them died in the house, so that kind of lends itself to the theory that they didn't live there very much. But they definitely left stuff there. But Stacy thinks that they might have bought the house for their only son. His name was Rudy, and they just doted on him. He was like their golden child. So years go by, like 30, 40 years go by, and the lore of the house just kind of keeps growing, right? Stacy talks about how this one guy, I cannot remember his name, but he says he brought like 100 people to this house in like at night and would just like tell the story over and over. This guy killed his wife, attempted to kill his daughter, Christmas tree, Christmas presents, all that stuff, so that the lore is like built up and built up. And so people get really, really interested in this house, and some people even want to like go inside, and they do. Like there, if you go online, there are pictures, old pictures of like people in the house that definitely shouldn't be there. One of the things that they talk about a lot in the podcast is a light switch plate. And what I mean by that is like the cover that's on a light switch. Up in Judy's bedroom, there is a light switch plate that has her name on it and like has flowers on it and stuff, and allegedly had a few spots of blood on it too.
These legends get so dramatic.
But the light switch is real. The podcast host actually has it.
What?
You have to go listen to it. It's crazy.
Did she go get it?
No, somebody gave it to her. It's wild.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's because, okay, so I'll jump ahead a little bit. The house has been taken down to the studs, so that would have probably been thrown away anyway. So it's like, whatever. Craziness.
That's totally wild, but I guess if anyone should have it.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to get into all of that because it's wild. You should go listen to Stacy's podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So neighbors have seen people like having picnics in the backyard.
Oh my God, you guys.
One person alleges that she was bitten by a black widow spider when she was like trying to trespass.
I'm not sorry for you.
Yeah, it's like, sorry, but you shouldn't be trespassing. And
you see that big no trespassing sign? That's where your liability begins.
Right.
I know we've talked about this, but we talk about it a lot in the like 1900s or the 1800s of people going to crime scenes or going to like these places or these murder houses and trampling all over things and disrupting evidence and stuff like that. But I think there's something equally as sinister in these kind of activities, because that's the site of someone's mother's murder.
Right.
Like,
yeah,
that's the site of this woman Judy's worst trauma. Like, it's not a spot for a picnic.
No, definitely not. It toes going to the murder mansion, like sneaking into the murder mansion, kind of toes the line of like, is this respectful? Is this, because this house did technically belong to somebody. They just maybe weren't there when people were like breaking in.
Yeah, it is private property.
It's private property, and also like it's a historic house. Like, yeah, there's so many bad
people doing punk shit, but this is not punk shit.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not like the Winchester Mystery House where you can just go. Maybe that's part of what is like creating the appeal. I'm going to read a good quote that I think was from Ranker that kind of, I think, gets at what you were talking about a little bit. Quote, regardless of whether the Enriquez family actually stored any of their things in the house or not, it is clear by the glimpses snuck through the windows that they did nothing to move or alter the belongings of the original ill-fated inhabitants. Ultimately, this neglect achieved the perfect haunted house effect, not unlike its nearby Hollywood movie sets, only this was the real thing.
Yeah, I think it's the ultimate, like, for those into aesthetics, abandoned places hold such a distinct feeling, and then put on top of that the house's history. And I totally understand why people want to sneak in there and want to go look in the windows and stuff. But you just gotta fight that urge.
Yeah. Luckily, it's all gone now. Like I said, it's down to the studs. And kind of unclear where it's at in the market.
The land.
Yeah. We'll get into that in a second. I'm jumping because I'm just this topic is exciting to me.
Well, it's fascinating.
So weird. It's just like, what?
It's taking like a true story that has been like fictionalized by the community, but it has this tangible, real like place attached to it that, you know, was altered by the new owners and by everyone who visited it. You know, it's a recipe for intrigue.
Yeah, exactly. So, flashing forward to 1994. So, the murder is in 1959. Now we're in 1994. Teens are having a ball at this fucking house. Neighbors are calling the cops every day, probably, and being like, get off that property.
You and I are somewhere pooping in our diapers.
Yeah. Exactly. Oh, yeah, 94, yeah. The son, Rudy Enriquez, upon the death of his mother, he inherits the Los Feliz Murder Mansion.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah. Again, Rudy is the one that also claims that he used the house as storage. In 2009, he told the LA Times, quote, "I don't know that I want to live there or even stay there."
I get that.
But he was interviewed. Well, not interviewed. The host of the podcast talked to him. He didn't want to be interviewed, but he told her that they lived there. He's like, I lived there for 30 years.
Did you?
Welcome to The Ugly Radio on the Podmoth Network, a lo-fi sci-fi audio theater anthology series made for late nights and strong drinks. Join us monthly as we broadcast a pirate signal across time and space, featuring stories, songs, and frequencies from a rotating list of voice actors, writers, storytellers, and musicians. If you're looking for high-quality science fiction, skin-crawling horror, and other genre fiction, listen to The Ugly Radio on the Podmoth Network, now available wherever you get your podcasts. The Ugly Radio. See you in the void.
I don't think he did. At that point, he was 80, and I don't know if he just liked to mess with people or he had like an emotional attachment to the house. So it's like, yeah, I feel like I lived there.
But like, don't they have evidence of the place being, like you said, like virtually untouched and like heavily trespassed on?
So, yeah. So, I mean, but it's kind of unclear when the trespassing starts, like when this story like takes off. So for me, I have a little bit of trouble like figuring out if it was just kind of in the neighborhood for a long time and then suddenly like everybody knew about it and was trying to figure it out and breaking in and stuff, or if that's been a little bit more recent. Like that part of the timeline is a little bit unclear to me.
Interesting.
Or, you know, like maybe he just kind of liked messing with people. Like, you never know. Like, I don't know. I don't know quite what to make of that. So, with the Christmas presents in the window, Rudy told Stacy that there were Christmas presents there. There was Christmas wrapping, but they were his because he was storing Christmas presents there and wrapping presents there at some point.
Oh my God.
So it's
so
like,
he was
where
like
did
for his family?
Yep. So it's kind of a question of what came first, like the lore of the Christmas tree or Rudy living there, or, you know, the Enriquez family living there. It's super unclear where that part of the legend started.
If he liked messing with people, it'd be pretty cruel of him to have heard the rumor and then put the presents in there.
Who knows? Yeah. It's so weird and fascinating.
There are so many layers.
Yeah. You can kind of see why she did this research for like 3 years. or 7 years, sorry. And it actually, she's like more of a film documentary maker. I thought this was interesting. And they started making it as a documentary. And then eventually they pivoted to it being a podcast because she felt like she could tell the story better in a podcast.
Yeah. Well, in a podcast, you can make a podcast as long as you want, but a film, you have such limited time. Like you said, there just seems to be so much detail here.
Yeah. I didn't end up like watching any of the footage. I just kind of listened to the podcast and was reading articles, but they do reference like footage that they shot that you can see on their website, which I think is kind of cool. There's kind of like a video component of some of it.
Do you know that website off the top of your head?
I think it was just like Los Feliz Murder Mansion.com, honestly. I'll link it in the show notes.
Yeah, at least I would like to see.
It's cool, yeah.
I don't know. I'm fully freaked out by those pictures on the Alice Obscura website,
yeah.
though. Like, whoever took those was really playing up that horror angle.
Oh, yeah. Creepy creep. There's also, like, in kind of reading between the lines, not me, the like journalists that have written about this, and Stacy, the podcaster / documentarian, kind of came to the conclusion that Rudy was a little bit of a hoarder and didn't really like to get rid of anything, which could kind of be like why he even kept the house, because like maybe he just kind of somebody described him as saying that like he just kind of kept things. So the house was a gift from his parents, we think, and so maybe that made it precious to him.
I mean, I can totally understand that. I can also see just having a place, if you are someone who hangs on to stuff, having a place to put your stuff.
Yeah.
Lord knows, I gave myself an extra room, and that's really enabled me to acquire 50% more black clothing that I only wear 20% of.
Yeah.
God damn it.
Yeah. So the Enriquez family is originally from Mexico, I believe. There was real estate agents at the time in Los Angeles in certain neighborhoods were like only showing houses to white people. But then because this house wasn't selling, like they kind of thought that maybe those rules were kind of overlooked, or like somebody grew a conscience and decided not to do that, or possibly like they got this house because it was it should have only been available to white people and it wasn't, and it was kind of like a fuck you, like maybe am I making sense? Like I don't
making sense.
I don't pretend to know the experience of Mexican Americans and like racism like that, where real estate agents won't show you houses in a certain neighborhood.
Yeah, no, that's super fucked up.
But I could, if I was in that position, I would want to buy a house just to be like, yeah, fuck you guys. I can buy whatever the fuck I want.
Yeah, and I'd want to hold on to it and keep it in my family.
Yeah, so that's just a
to
theory.
Let the fuck you continue for generations.
That could be just a layer of it, potentially. They talked about that in more detail in the podcast, which I just thought was interesting.
No, I think that's super important. I think knowing the context, like you said, this is about the house, and these type of like systematic racist practices determined who owned the house.
Mm-hmm. So, this was crazy. So at one point in the podcast, a friend of Rudy died in 2015, but a cousin or a friend or something had some old papers from the Los Feliz Murder Mansion that quote unquote belonged to Rudy. I shit you not, this was crazy. He had old medical files that belonged to Dr. Harold Perelson, and he had written his own notes in like the margins and on the back of papers and stuff, like notes about like finances and like nothing about medical stuff. He was just like, he kept things. So he just like had all this paper and he used them, which shows like that there was a mixing of the two families' possessions, because people didn't know that.
I would like to narrate that my mouth has been open
right?
for this whole time.
It's like, what?
Because that is wild. That is wild. How, I guess. Reduce,
reuse, recycle, baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he's rich.
But,
He
like,
doesn't need to skimp on paper. So it's like,
I know, but
it's
like,
so
the
interesting.
significance of that though, like that's like I don't know, in the like evidence or the lore of this house or whatever, like, you know, it feels like taking a clay tablet and, you know, from Mesopotamia or whatever, and crunching it in half to make a step stool. Like, I don't know, it just feels like the mixing is so abrupt.
It's wild.
And
yeah.
This is human nature.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we're always doing, is everything is built on top of each other.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like so evident in the like microcosm of this house, the like layers of inhabitants. It's fascinating.
Yeah. There was
people are so weird.
People that knew Rudy that were interviewed were like, had nothing but nice things to say about him too, and just seemed to think that he just cared about people. And like, hopefully I don't know, you know, he must have known like who Dr. Perelson was and what he did, but somehow he found a connection to him. And like, I don't know, I think if I found like old medical records from like 1919 or whenever he was practicing, I'd be like, like, yeah, this is interesting. I mean, I guess it's a way.
I don't hold it against him for keeping it.
Yeah, you put your own mark on it, so then you have to keep it or something, maybe. I don't know. It's just really interesting to me.
I mean, yeah, I just wish I could have been there with him in the house and seen what else had been left around.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, so Rudy lives to be an older gentleman in his 80s. He dies in 2015. So now we're up to 2016, where the Los Feliz Murder Mansion is bought by a lawyer named Lisa Bloom and her husband, Braden Pollock. And they were interviewed on the podcast.
Oh, they'll do the podcast.
So they bought the house in 2016 for $2.29 million.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Well, I guess for LA, that's not bad.
Yeah. I mean, and it's in a very prestigious neighborhood, like next to the fucking Ennis house. Like, the problem, what these folks would find out. So, I kind of mentioned, so there's like 50 steps to get to the top, not the top, to get to the front door. So the house is on a hill, right? At one point in the construction, I think early on, the garage was like at the bottom of the hill. So you had to like park your car and then walk. But then they like made a driveway to the backyard or some shit. Like, I don't understand this house being, why did it need to be this way?
You should have taken some notes from our friend Frank over there.
Yeah. So this lawyer, Lisa, and her husband, Braden, they wanted to like do a complete renovation of this place. Oh, and by the way, this is on over half an acre of land. Wow. It's on like 2 parcels of land. It's crazy.
So it's a big property.
It's big. And it's just all house on a hill. Like, it seems like.
Well, it's just like, it's incredibly imposing, this house.
It's scary.
Because like, when she's talking about the stairs, they're like straight up.
Yeah.
It is not an accessible
No,
home.
you would not be able to live there and have mobility issues in any way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's scary as hell. It's kind of ugly in my opinion.
Yeah. So their renovation, the way they wanted to do it, was going to cost more than half of the price of the house. And yes.
Seems like the financial math is not mathing.
And in doing all that, they would need to bring the building up to code for the present day, not from the 20s when it was built. And so, okay, here's how it's phrased, quote, "The house would have to be completely razed and the land flattened before they could rebuild." So that sounds bad.
That seems like that's a total scrapping. That's a series wrap on the house.
So they never did the renovation, and it sells again in 2020 to a developer.
Oh.
So the podcast came out in 2021, but there was a little update episode from July 2022, and she was like, hey, it's back on the market again, July of 2022.
How much?
And I was like, oh shit. She said it was $5 million or something. But then I go on to like Zillow and Redfin. It says either that it's not for sale or that it's off market, and that the last time it was sold was in 2020. So I don't know what's going on. My guess is that everybody who gets this house has issues with it because it just is a weird ass house. And like, it's probably going to end up being demolished at some point because it's not like livable in its current state, but it's like too expensive to fix. It's really weird.
Wow. Ugh, sounds like a haunted money pit.
Before I finish off, I'm just going to take you way, way back really quick because this house actually has a history even before the Pearlsons moved in. The house was built in 1925 for this guy named Harry Schumacher, who was a wholesale fruit seller, and he bought it for $20,000, which today would be around $315,000. Still pretty good.
That's still such a deal.
Exactly. So this house is built for the Schumachers from the ground up. 3 years later, the wife, Florence, dies of heart disease on July 1st, 1928, in the house. 27 days later, Harry Schumacher dies of pneumonia in the house also. And they're both like not that old. They're in their like 40s or 50s. Yeah. There was also one of the like tenants over the years was like a 20-year-old guy. I cannot remember his name. I'm sorry. But he was like 20 years old and he got this like random freak infection and died also in the house.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah. And after the Schumachers had vacated it and some tenants had been in whatever, it had stood vacant for 30 years before the Pearlsons got in there.
There's something going on
This
here.
house is fucking haunted or cursed or something. There is a legend of somebody like putting a curse on that specific land like way, way back. I can't remember all the details from the podcast, but this area where this house is like, and this house, something's not right. But I wish I could go back in time and go peep through the window. I'm going to be honest.
As much as I would like to say that I'm of a higher moral caliber, I would be right there next to you going, can you lift me up?
Yeah.
Because you're taller than me. But wow, that was amazing, Katelyn. Like, that podcast sounds insane. I love a deep dive like that.
Yeah.
I loved this deep dive. This was, you gave me a birthday present.
Oh, good. I'm glad you liked it. I'm glad it was coherent because I was like, there's just so much here. And obviously, she researched it for 7 years, so I didn't cover everything. So
you didn't exactly have the same amount of time.
No, but I am kind of glad.
I thought you did fantastic.
Thank you. And I'm kind of glad we decided to do a 2-parter because otherwise this would be like a 2-hour episode.
Yeah. Well, you know, we're allowed to take our time, and we ended up having something of a theme between these 2-parters with, you know, doctors who were suffering from mental illness.
And we're assholes.
Yours
was the bigger asshole.
Total
but
dick.
Yeah.
I mean, apples and oranges, isn't it? But he was a mass murderer. But, you know, I'm just excited to keep exploring interesting topics like this because I really appreciated hearing about the house and the house's history and the land's history, you know, apart from just the crimes.
The moida. Because that is a big part of it, but it's just one piece.
Yeah. And I think, you know, kind of like we were talking about, we're women of science, but I think these places absorb some sort of energy or something.
Yeah.
I know that's a little woo-woo, but you know.
I mean, there's gotta be some bad energy there, whatever you believe, because this is not normal.
Vortex.
This is not good. Like, what's going on? I mean, it seems like the Enriquez family was pretty cool, maybe a little eccentric, but like, I'm
glad nothing bad happened to them.
If I had money to spare, I'd have multiple houses and I'd just have a mansion for storage. Sure. And yeah, they want to throw in some old furniture of a murdered family. Great. Like, I don't know. It's wild.
The stuff about writing financial notes on the medical notes
Isn't that
of the doctor. It's like, I don't want to that shit is my, like, initial reaction, but I, like, almost get it. Like, when you were talking about him leaving his mark and being, like, a keeper of things, like, I almost take back what I said about, like, a level of respect, because, like, I think to him, by keeping it and altering it, you know, he was adding it in a way to his own little museum.
Yeah.
Just wild stuff.
Yeah.
Just, sorry, brain blown. That I knew a little bit about this case. Like we were saying,
Yeah,
I think we both heard the My Favorite Murder episode, maybe. I was in a big kick of haunted houses a couple of years ago, but I did not know a lot of this stuff.
Cool. Well, I'm glad I could teach everyone something, at least everyone in this Zoom call, because I definitely learned a lot. And yeah, I'm gonna take a little break because I really got into this one. So I'm like, if I need more Los Feliz Murder Mansion content, I need to do it next week or something.
You need to take a break. That house has got its, like, weird ghost tentacles on you.
Yeah.
Katelyn, do not go to the house.
Okay, no.
I know you may feel a pull.
But I won't go.
Do not follow.
I won't go.
Don't go.
No.
I see you starting to stand up. Sit down.
Okay.
No, stop it.
I was thinking about walking to LA, but no, I've got work tomorrow. It's better this way.
You can make it back in time.
Yeah.
If you take a brisk jog.
Yeah. Explain to my new boss. Sorry, I had to walk to LA. What?
I was being called by the spirit of a cursed home.
Have you listened to my podcast? Anything else?
Like, what?
Yeah.
Ma'am, this is a cardiac clinic. We are an organ family.
Yeah.
Stop with all that bone malarkey. Don't let your father hear you talking like that.
No, that's sick.
It's sick. This is squishy blood and tissue only. Katelyn secretly hiding her bones in her desk.
Yeah, it's weird. So I'm kind of like rotating to different desks, and then pretty soon I'm going to be like working like hybrid. So I'm like, I'm not going to bring shit in. Like, I'm not going to personalize anything because I'm not going to be there that much or consistently.
I have a desk at work, and if people move shit around on my desk,
all hell breaks loose.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Why would you think that the tape dispenser goes over there, you absolute devil?
Don't borrow my things.
Don't borrow my things. Don't touch my string.
Yeah, that's right.
These are my scissors, and they're the only sharp ones down here.
I curated them myself.
I did. I went through one day and I tested all the scissors. I took the sharpest pair because, you know what? I have a lot of string to cut in my day.
And you know what? You deserve it.
Thank you. Thank you. And I hope on this birthday week for you, all of your scissors are the sharpest that are available to you.
Thank you. Yeah. Next time we record, I'll be 30. It's good. 30's good.
Oh
I
my
think
God.
I've heard only good things about the 30s, so I think it's going to be okay.
Yeah. And I'm right behind you just a cool 6 months later.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can tell me how it goes. I'm excited for 30.
Yeah, we will see.
I feel like there's like a respect and a charisma that comes with 30.
A dignity.
Yes!
A certain 30-year-old dignity.
Well, like, you've gotten out of that trap of the 20s where, like, you've learned a lot about life, but not so much that, like, other adults give you respect. Like, anytime there's a 2 in front of the, you know, your name, people are like, oh, you're just in your 20s, like, whatever. But once you hit to 30, now your opinions start mattering.
That's right. Yeah, y'all better start listening.
Y'all better watch out. When we turn 30, we're gonna have shit to say.
That's right. All right, everyone. Well, stay safe out there. If you are feeling like giving me a birthday treat, I think we called for this last time anyway. Say happy birthday to me in a review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify. We are still trying to get our name out there, and we would really appreciate some love because it really does help get us noticed.
Yeah, and if you follow us over on Instagram, give us one of those little celebration face emojis with the party hat in the comments. I want to see lots of party hats for Katelyn's birthday.
Put on your hats. Let's dance.
I've put on my bone hat that I made, the bone beret from last
a
episode.
while ago now for these folks.
For these folks, mere hours for us.
Yeah.
How time has shifted. It's too late to be doing this.
We're being silly. Okay, everyone.
We're being too silly. Silly gooses.
At a sleepover right now. I'm like, go to sleep.
Oh my God. Go to sleep? No, I want to stay up. Mom, can we stay up?
And Mom yells down the stairs, no.
No, go to bed. You both have work tomorrow.
All right, don't think about that.
Well, I love you so much.
Bon voyage.
Goodbye.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to Anything Bones. Follow us on Instagram or Facebook at Anything Bones Podcast, or email us at anythingbonespodcast@gmail.com.
Thank you to Nick Kruger for our spooky music and Stephen Vetteroff
At Chubby Scrubby on Twitter.
for our jazzy vocals, and thank you to Camilla Franklin
At Camilla Strader on Instagram.
for our beautiful bony artwork. Please rate, review, and subscribe.
How do skeletons get their mail?
I don't know. They wiggle over to the mailbox. I don't know.
They get it from the Boney Express.
Oh, I hate it.